Oh, it's good to be back with all of you. It is I, Captain Boring, along CFB3. He is my dude. At some point, the Admiral, you like that, will be around. We're not quite sure when, so we just went ahead and got started. It's been a while. It's been, maybe a month? At least 3 weeks. At least 2 weeks. Yeah, something like that. We are good to be back. This is the 4th&1 podcast. Let's get all of this out of the way first. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, some random off-site third world that will definitely give you a virus podcast website. I'm sure we're on there. Go find us. Like and subscribe, share. Go follow us on Instagram, 4th&1 podcast. All of the words are spelled out. 4th&1 podcast. Add that podcast in there so that you will be able to find that. And no, I am not Cam Newton. Stop asking. Because his podcast is also 4th&1.
Oh.
Yeah, you didn't know that, did you?
Know that.
Yeah.
No.
His podcast is also 4th&1. It's also a little more popular than ours. But, my dude, it's good to be back. We are in the thick of spring football. The last weekend of spring games are upcoming this Saturday, including the 2023 defending national champions, Michigan Wolverines. They got a lot of questions to ask. I spent last Saturday watching the Ohio State spring game. Very little bit of the Penn State spring game. Robert, have you watched any spring football or no?
I caught a little bit of Ohio State, but...
Okay, and what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, you know that I think that Ohio State's probably one of the best teams coming into the season.
Yep.
I mean, they're going to have a good receiving core. They always do. They have a loaded backfield like they usually do. Offensive line, they kind of look okay, but they've always had trouble on the edges, which Michigan's always taken advantage of. But, I mean, Ohio State looked all right. I think they looked good. You know, I mean, their quarterbacks aren't going to be, I mean, not Will Levis. Will Howard is, Will Howard. It's,
right.
What you see is what you get from him. It's not like he's gonna, 1 week be subpar and next week he's gonna be like a Heisman runner. He's just gonna be him.
He does have a Big 12 championship under his belt. I mean, he beat what a lot of people I think forget. I know, woohoo, but what a lot of people forget is he beat the TCU team that beat Michigan in the college football playoff in the Big 12.
That got blown out in the first 6 minutes of the
okay. Well, everyone wants to take it just a step further to prove my point. Still, it's a good accomplishment, okay? It's a good accomplishment. Is it not? To have
but what did he do last year?
He didn't do anything. My point is he really that much better than Kyle McCord?
I kind of think Kyle would have been better. Just because
I agree with you.
You're getting Will for a year, but I also don't think Will's going to be there all season. It wouldn't surprise me if he's there for the first maybe 3 games until they get into the thick of conference play, and then I expect to see Aaron Nolan take over.
He didn't play that much in the spring game. That kid, Nate Brown? Is that his name? I don't know his first name. That Brent.
Yeah, he's the one that got chewed up against Missouri.
Yeah, and then there's the other true freshman that also played. I mean, Aaron Nolan. He played mostly second half. It was live. It was fine. My thought from it is the quarterback situation still doesn't impress me. I think Ohio State's going to have a good receiving core, as you said. I think where the improvement's going to come is Chip Kelly's going to stick to the running game, and where I feel like Ohio State could improve offensively is sticking with the running game. There was nothing really wrong with Travion Henderson in the running game, but now you add Quinshon Judkins to the running game, and then if you just have a play caller that will stick with it on 3rd and 5. stick with it in the second half in a tight game. Like, I just felt like Ryan Day relied on his targets outside a little too much and got a little too pass happy. And I don't think that you necessarily agree. To shut the book on Kyle McCord in the chapter, Robert, I feel, let me know if you agree, that he got run out of Columbus because C.J. Stroud couldn't beat Michigan.
I don't know if it's so much at CJ. I think he was just getting run out because they couldn't beat Michigan. You know, he didn't beat Michigan. CJ didn't beat Michigan. It's 3 years in a row. I just think that they were like, oh, this guy can't do it. On to the next person. You know, if Will Howard stays the entire season and Will Howard doesn't get it, it's kind of whatever because Will Howard's not going to be there next year anyways. But if Aaron Nolan or Brown are the quarterback and they go and can't beat Michigan, I don't expect either of them to be there next year because either Ryan Day is going to get fired, which I think is a very high possibility if they lose to Michigan again, or they're just going to transfer out because they're just going to be like, listen, you're not cutting it for the team and you need to get going.
If you were the AD of Ohio State, expanded playoffs, okay, you go, so you're 10-1, you go 10-2, you still make the college football playoff, you go 11-1, and your one loss, one of your two losses in either scenario is to Michigan. You still make the college football playoff. You got a home game, let's say. You win that. You either lose in the quarters or the semis. You know, you pull the typical Ohio State sort of trajectory over the last couple seasons, the storyline. Are you really firing Ryan Day? Because he has the highest winning percentage at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think yes, and I think the main reason that I'm saying yes is because look at how it was with Harbaugh.
Okay.
With Michigan. You know, Harbaugh, it's not like we had losing records. You know, we couldn't get to the playoffs and we couldn't win a bowl game.
Yep.
But like we were still winning 80-90% of our games.
Yeah.
And it was like, nope, get him out of here. Get him out of here. He's on, like, he was pretty much on his deathbed. And they were
after 2020,
like,
yeah.
And like we were there with a broom ushering him out.
Yeah, we were reaching for that plug. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State hasn't won a national championship since
2014.
Okay, so 2014. So that's a long time for a program like Ohio State. Haven't won a Big Ten title in the past
5 years.
5 years. That's a long time for Ohio State. They're definitely in an era they've never been in a long time. So I think and it's not going to be like, oh, because Ryan Day's not a good coach. It's just they're going to look at it as this needs to change, and how are we going to? Because eventually the boosters are going to be the ones to do it.
Yeah,
the boosters it's money talks.
Yeah, I think it'll probably, if anything, I'm not sure it'll be an outright firing. Probably more of a mutually agreed to part with, or Ryan Day goes and looks at the NFL real hard and gets an NFL job or something like that. Because he does have really good passing concepts, and I think with some of the weapons in the NFL, he'd do quite well. All right, I don't know why I put my phone away, because that's where my talking points are. All right, this is taking us way back music. Clemson, this is taking us back to February, late January. Clemson filed a lawsuit against the ACC. So I'll catch you up. Florida State threatened to file a lawsuit when the ACC came out and said, we're not releasing you from your grant of rights. For you, those of you that don't know, FSU and Clemson believe that they are carrying the ACC, which they are, and they want to make more money than the rest of the schools. The ACC is locked in currently to a TV contract, a 20-year TV contract, right? It extends through 2036. The ACC since has fallen from grace, which was one of the top conferences in football at least, to one of the bottom conferences because the Big Ten and the SEC made moves, expanded, and took over. So, in order to get more piece of the pie, Florida State and Clemson want to leave. If they leave and pay a $160 million buyout fee, which I think in this case most boosters would just pay and just get out, the ACC still owns all of the home game TV rights for Florida State and Clemson until their TV contract ends. So even if they leave the conference with that ridiculous amount of money and chalk that up, they would still only be televised on road games, either in the ACC or elsewhere, even if they became independent. So Clemson, Florida State threatened to file a lawsuit. Clemson actually followed through and filed a lawsuit against the ACC. Robert, let's talk big picture here. Okay, because I don't believe that this is going to happen. This is not going to happen in the next 2 years. This might happen by 2030. My guess is that the ACC is going to reach some sort of agreement with one of these two big schools. But let's look at the other side. Let's say it does happen in the next however long. Clemson does it. Florida State's going to do it. North Carolina's going to do it. Literally every other big-time program. Bye-bye ACC. Robert, what does this say about big picture, future of college football, blah, blah, blah?
It just means, money talks. You're just going to have bigger, I'm just going to pause right there because I can see on my screen here, we might have ourselves a little visitor popping in. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Atta boy.
Way to join. Better late than never, my dude.
This is what happens when you barely ever pull out this laptop because we're not doing this every week. Also, way to wait like a whole 30 seconds. I was late like 30 seconds, and y'all just said, fuck it, we're doing it without him.
Wasn't my choice. I said, no, let's wait for the man. And Micaiah was like, we ain't waiting. I was like, you got it, dog.
Also, do you like how, Robert, we've done now 13 minutes of this podcast without a single swear word? It was nice. It was professional. We had a nice conversation. Dude comes in immediately. F-bomb right away.
Listen, we ain't on ESPN. We don't got to bow down to Rob Eigler. We can do whatever we want. We'll Pat McAfee this bitch.
And we're just going to keep it going.
Sorry, Mom. What have we covered so far?
We've covered Ohio State and kind of that spring game, and then that rolled into a Ryan Day conversation. We are now talking about Clemson filing the lawsuit against the ACC. I gave the background, and I was asking Robert to explain what this means big picture-wise, and he was talking about how money talks, and then you and your glorious mustache showed up.
Thanks. All right, so we're here. And Robert, I don't mean to interrupt you. Thanks for stopping. Go ahead and continue on with how money talks. Or are we?
Yeah, hey.
I really thought you were just going to start talking to me. And I thought you were going to be like, all right, well, here's what it means. And just start going.
I mean, are we surprised, though, that this happened? Like,
No.
this... How old is this news? This news is like, what, a month old?
Well, right. I was just... I told you.
Listen.
It's sparse. I was writing down topics.
I got it. I'm just making sure there wasn't any new information.
Nah.
And we've had this conversation.
I think it's Clemson and Virginia?
That's a weird match.
That filed?
Yeah.
No, Virginia filed over the transfer portal thing and won.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was Tennessee.
They both did.
Okay.
Virginia and Tennessee filed.
I thought it was Virginia and Clemson for the buyout.
You could be right. Maybe Virginia's just like, we suck at football. We might as well get some W's against the NCAA since they handing out W's to everybody.
They do like playing defense. That's a Virginia basketball joke. For those of you who don't get that, you're welcome. Anyway,
so
you guys want to know something that's very simian?
Yeah,
we'll get back to this. We'll get back to this.
Just go. We're off the rails already. You joined for 5 seconds, and now we're off the rails. Go for it, bud.
As we record this, the quarterfinals of the Champions League is playing right now. God. I wanted to just come in and set Micaiah off. It was too fun. I'm going to beat this dead horse one more time.
Whip-de-doodle day.
This is further consolidation towards a monopoly in college sports, specifically college football, to be the official minor league of the NFL. And that's all this lawsuit is. And if we disguise it as anything else other than that, we're lying to ourselves and to the 17-year-olds who are about to become freshmen and transfer out in a year, and to the 28-year-olds who are on their 9th year of eligibility. So that's all I'm going to say. This is the dead horse we're beating. Surprise Clemson. And until we decide to break up bigger companies for monopoly, we're not going to do anything for the NCAA. And that's never going to happen because there's too much money involved.
Well, that's a great segue. You know how much money is involved over the next 6 years in the college football playoff?
How much is there, Micaiah?
$7.8 billion. That's with a B, dollars. ESPN and the college football playoff agreed. Again, this was probably now a month and a half, 2 months ago, on a 6-year, $7.8 billion agreement. ESPN will play the college football playoff. College football playoff, I hope, will distribute that money equally and fairly. That's high hopes. However, it's not run by the NCAA. So that's just how much money for the playoff alone. And I don't know how much the NFL made last year, but I'm guessing that 7.8 is roughly half of what the NFL made. And that's only going to be for the next 6 years and a couple weeks total each year. Let's get you also caught up on more legal news. A judge denies Northwestern's attempt to dismiss Pat Fitzgerald's wrongful termination lawsuit. So Pat Fitzgerald, if you guys remember, right before the season started, beginning of July last year, Northwestern fired him for a bullying scandal. Which one?
Yes. I guess it's both.
Technically both.
Okay, both.
Yeah. There's no difference anymore.
A school newspaper came out with culture surrounding the baseball, softball, volleyball, football, kind of a school-wide athletic culture of bullying, hazing, and with football being the forefront because that's what football is. And therefore, Northwestern fired him, first suspended him, said it was going to do an investigation for 2 weeks, turned around a day later and fired him. He fired a lawsuit. The judge apparently is on his side that Northwestern needs to show cause and all of that. So that is going forward. Meanwhile, Northwestern, last year during football season, I would like to remind everyone, in everyone's prediction, mine, Robert's, Simeon's, we all predicted them to win a single game. And how many did they win? They won 7. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they went 7-6, including a bowl game win over Utah that did have some fights. But good on Northwestern.
Can I swing back? That was a good segue to move away from the college deal. No, this is back.
Why wouldn't
to the
you
billions.
just say that out loud?
Me?
Robert.
Oh,
yeah. Why don't you just say that?
We weren't on the topic. We were talking about something. I'm not going to interject myself like other people in this podcast, but we're just going to keep going. I didn't want to just go from one.
We can come. We can't. I mean, that would have been a perfect time to segue into it. Micaiah is right, but as he drinks from his Stanley,
it's my wife.
I want to segue back to that billions with a B
7.8.
$7.8 billion on 6 year, and ESPN's basically buying an IV for themselves for the next 6 years. They're hoping, from a business perspective, they're hoping that basically streaming prices going up is going to bring some people back to cable or bring in people to Hulu and live TV, therefore bringing in more ad revenue, or YouTube TV is another big one that they have. Or even just back to cable and Comcast. And they're hoping that's going to happen over the next 6 years, and they're going to be able to make this money back. Now, I haven't looked this up, but we know the second most watched event last year. When was the last year? Last year was Ohio State versus Michigan. Well, I guess it was the most watched. Well, probably not to the Super Bowl.
Second, the Rose Bowl topped it then.
The Rose Bowl then topped it. So we're talking millions of eyeballs that are going to be on ESPN for the next 6 years. The only other thing that topped it this year was that Caitlin Clark Final Four loss, I think, technically, which, again, was also probably ESPN. I don't know when the NCAA women's tournament was.
Where are you going with this, bud?
My point...
Jeez.
I'm just trying to give people some numbers to be like, it's not like we have a bunch of fans that go, oh, yeah, okay, they overpaid. Even some people would be like, yeah, even some people in the industry would be like, yes, they overpaid $7.8 billion for one country's second division. But at the end of the day, I wanted to give numbers to be like, hey, this actually makes sense from a business perspective because ESPN will eventually have to move, and the best way to do that is through college football. Sorry it took me so long.
Yeah, I sat through 2 interviews with Walter today, and I spent all day listening to numbers. I just needed you to get there faster, bud. Just get there faster, my dude.
Gosh darn it, Micaiah.
But you are correct. Smart move. Everything is smart about this.
It's to me, this more speaks for ESPN trying to become the home of college football and more of a like we were talking about with consolidation with the Clemson ACC suite. This says more to me about ESPN trying to consolidate power within their sports community, specifically for some reason within college sports. I don't know why. Than it does for the CFP and the NCAA. And it also goes to show you how NIL is still a fraction of the issue compared to the amount of money that's unregulated money that's in the NCAA. That's all. We're done. We can move back to the Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald's wrongful termination suit.
Well, no, I didn't want to comment unless if either of you have a comment on this. I was just catching people up on the news, on the college football news over the last 2 months.
If only we had this other sort of episode that gave people news.
If only I covered
10 minutes.
Oh, wait, I did. I'm just catching people up in case they only listen to our podcast.
That is fair.
So okay. Well, anyways, we're talking about this. I started making myself laugh. So how ESPN wants to be kind of the home of college football. Does that mean that like the colleges that have their own network, Notre Dame or
Texas,
yeah, does that make them like the halfway houses of college football? Because it's like that's just theirs.
Well, so the Texas did break away. The Texas Longhorn Network did break away from ESPN, didn't it?
They were the original. Let's get all of the money we can out of this. Texas, as soon as the Longhorns launched the Longhorn Network, everyone was like, that's not going to work. And then when they got 3 million views for a spring practice, because that's what Longhorn Network will literally just videotape a spring practice and then post it, certain areas of it. And they got all of these views for it. Every other school in the country is like, oh, we can make a lot of money.
Well, also to be fair,
Robert, that's a great joke. Halfway houses, I like that a lot.
Halfway houses, especially because of the transfer portal, and that's basically all college football teams are now. So two things. One, it was also kind of the start of this whole consolidation of streaming. If you think about it, like, hey, we'll have Paramount Plus, and we'll own the distribution as well as the production. So we have more of the money. You can also blame Amazon for that, but you can also blame Texas probably. Also, at what point does the NFL finally get involved and do something like the NBA does? This is kind of off topic, but not. And do something like the NBA does, especially if the UFL now continues to progress the way that it has progressed this season. And basically go, okay, 1 year of eligibility. We don't need you to do 4.
I don't know why the NFL would get involved.
I feel like that'd be way more detrimental.
Yeah, I don't know, because the NFL is looking at this, or at least I'm looking at this for the NFL as in, you have a free developmental pipeline that second-handedly brings you revenue. Because people who watch and fall in love with these kids in college as college football grows will then tune in on Sundays when they get drafted. The NFL draft has never been more popular. That's coming up next weekend. Because college football has just exploded. So you doing the one and done, as soon as college basketball kind of went to the one and done, that was the
NBA's issue, not college basketball's thing.
So as soon as the NBA went there, they just diluted college basketball so much and the developmental process that college basketball brought. Don't you agree, Robert? Or no? Am I off base?
The reason it works for the NBA is because basketball is a lot easier to translate. The game essentially gets faster in the NBA. That's the big thing. It just gets faster. And like, I mean, I played basketball in high school, but like, you're
brag.
You're shooting. You know, you're shooting the ball, you're passing, dribbling. It's easier to translate over to the NBA. So you get some of these kids who say they do one and done. You're not going to find a lineman worth anything in the NFL draft that has 1 year experience to put in any position on an NFL line. They would have to wait 2-3 years before start bulking. They get more talented. I mean, some of these, like Caleb Williams wasn't great as a freshman.
Right. I'm more thinking, so it would look different, right? It doesn't you're 100% correct. It does not translate the same way. One of two things. One, somehow there's less money involved at the NCAA level, and there's more money involved at the UFL level, that kids transfer from the NCAA to the UFL, in which case the NCAA would be a tier 3 division. That's not going to happen. The more I talk to people who know more than I do and are more involved in boosters organizations like Penn State, like Michigan, the more you give, the more money. Sidebar. I'll come back to that. Probably not. Why are you donating money as a booster for NIL? Like, do you love to fellatio your alma mater so much that you just want to see them win shit? Like, what does that give you? I don't understand this. It's not an investment. You don't make any money from it. Like, yeah, I see the billboards driving on 11 and 15 Young Cannon for that law firm that has some Penn State linebacker on it. Don't know who he is. Doesn't make me want to use that law firm anymore. If I was a Penn State fan, wouldn't want to make me use that. Like if I saw Blake Corum on or.
Nice.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, so I 100% agree. No, but yeah, it's just one of those things. I guess you just do it as it's a power move, just to say you have the money. I don't know how we transition from here.
I don't know. Late, immediate F-bomb takes over podcast. and then dips. That's it right there. And then he told me to turn my mic down, and then he has the audacity for his computer to freeze, and he dips. So here's how this is going to go, Robert. Let's not transfer. Damian Martinez, spring transfer portal open. Damian Martinez, Kalen Proctor. Those are the two biggest names. Yeah. Kalen Proctor probably going back to Bama. Not a done deal. I thought it was a done deal. You told me yesterday, not yet. Not yet. Damian Martinez, he had 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns for Oregon State. He was the bell cow. Previous year, over 1,000 yards again, and like 11 touchdowns. Where's a good fit for Damian Martinez?
Any team that needs a running back, really. I mean, to be honest with you, Utah would be a good fit for him. Especially with what's his nuts coming back since he's been there for 15 years.
Cam Rising.
Yeah. He would probably be a good fit there. He'd be a good fit at Washington. He'd be a good fit really anywhere he goes that needs a running back. It's not like I can't think of a team that has a running back where it's kind of like, oh, this guy would be a big upgrade.
Okay, sure. I mean, probably not your Ohio State. I mean,
yeah, I wouldn't say like not Ohio State, not Michigan, not Penn State. He could go to Michigan State.
Follows coach, yeah.
Yeah, not Wisconsin, like not Alabama, not Georgia. Like, I mean, unless he wants a DUI and a speeding ticket, then yeah, go for it. But yeah,
hey, Michigan's working on their DUIs too, apparently.
Yeah, well. Once you're a national champ, that's what you do. DUIs for days, baby.
DUIs and speeding tickets for days.
I also don't condone drinking and driving.
Yeah. Let's just get that right out of the way. We're not able to display this camera and mic. Simeon experiencing connectivity issues. Ask them to refresh and re-enter the studio. So, my dude, you should refresh and re-enter your studio. Before he came in last time, I was going to segue from Judge denies Northwestern and that whole deal into Northwestern is redoing their stadium. And Robert, you brought this one to the group chat, which I love. Northwestern is going to hold games for the 2024 and 2025 season, so DOS seasons, at their practice facility, which is right on lakefront of Lake Michigan. And it seats maybe 1,000, 2,000 people. Apparently, they're going to bring in temporary structures and more seating.
There's not much you can add.
I mean, it's a walking path. On the one side, it's a walking path, and then Lake Michigan. When I say it's right on lakefront property, it's right, like, if it rains 6 inches, it's flooding.
But how it would look beautiful sitting there. Because, I mean, there's no person who goes to a Northwestern game who actually gives a shit about Northwestern.
Oh,
Let's just go ahead and say that.
Yeah.
So now you have the opportunity not to sit in a crappy stadium that they're rebuilding. Now you have essentially lakefront property to watch, like, the other team play Northwestern. So it's kind of like, almost a win for the consumer.
It is almost a win. I know that they're going to play some games at where were they going to play some of the game? They were going to play some games at, I think, not Wrigley, maybe Soldier Field. Was it Soldier Field? I don't know. I remember seeing
Probably
that.
Soldier would make more sense.
Right. They're going to kind of play, and at a local high school. I think they actually are going to play a game at a local high school as well. So that's cool. I mean, probably more seating, better field.
Yeah. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, it's Chicago. Like
there's nowhere to go.
There's no, you just can't do anything.
I would love if the University of Chicago still had their football stadium, because boy, talk about a throwback there. I mean, the University of Chicago, they were dominant. I'm talking like over 100 years ago. They were dominant in football. It's a tough situation, especially for a program that I have a soft spot for, only because their academic standards so high. They shouldn't be in a conference that is so good at football. And honestly, for how high their academic standards are and who they are historically, we've switched to our phones now, ladies and gentlemen, for Simeon. So everyone, round of applause. Way to work it back in there. You know what?
Overcome and adapt.
There it is. Great job, Robert. Great job. We were talking about the Northwestern field situation, how they're going to play there. But I always felt bad for Northwestern just because I felt like they didn't belong in the Big Ten. And they were supposed to win one game last year, and they won 7. Like, how do you not love that story?
Pretty easily.
I don't know, like winning more than losing.
Okay,
they're not supposed to do that. So
yeah, it's like seeing a Transformers movie
with your cousins, but Alabama still exists.
There it is, baby.
There it is. It's like Northwestern football is like a Transformers movie. Title of the pod.
Stop it.
If you're going there to see the plot and the character development, the Transformers movie, that is, if you're going to see the plot and the character development, you're going for the wrong thing. If you're going to see cool cars transform into cool robots, fighting cooler cars transforming into cooler robots, then that's why you go. If you're going to see Northwestern to win, you're going for the wrong thing. Okay? If you're going to see Northwestern stick it out and be a tough-nosed football team and then still get blown out by 20, you went for the right reason. Okay? All right. Let's play this transition. We talked about Ohio State. So this is news that actually just came down yesterday, I believe. So this is actually more now up-to-date news. The 2020, hamburger scandal has finally been closed between the University of Michigan and the NCAA. Michigan gets 3 years probation for recruiting violations. This includes recruiting restrictions for the next 3 years. No suspensions were giving out for Michigan hosting recruits in quotations during the COVID-19 dead period in 2020, as well as having too many staff members at the facility or some other BS that no one agrees with, including people in the Big Ten. Harbaugh's deal with that is completely separate. Michigan/Harbaugh's deal with the Connor Stallion things won't be ruled on for another 5 to 7 million years. Robert, did we expect anything less, anything more from the NCAA? What's going through your mind when you saw 3 years of probation? How dare they?
I mean, I don't really know if I expected 3 years of probation. Just because I kind of expected something a little lighter. Just because I think when it comes to when they eventually decide to rule on everything else that happened, I think that one will be a little harder, because then it's just going to compound. So we'll end up with probably like 8 years of probation. But I'm interested to see if they ever release how much the fine is for. And then they talked about the 1 year show clause for certain staff members.
What does that mean? I honestly don't know what that means. What does that mean?
So we talked about it before, but it's like if they leave the organization and they get hired by another organization, they can't coach for like that full year. So they're like on like a full year probation before they can actually do anything for the program. But it says that. Go ahead.
Well, I would say, is that for like a year, or is that like all of these coaches?
So for whenever you decide you're coming back. So like if Harbaugh would decide 6 years from now, hey, I'm coming back to Michigan, he would have to serve that 1 full year suspension after being hired. But it says that per NCAA protocol, Michigan's not naming any individuals, but they can note that no further game restrictions will be served by anyone who is still on the UM staff. So everyone who has a show clause does not coach for Michigan anymore, which is probably Harbaugh, probably Minter, and defensive coach.
Minter, the defensive coach?
Not Minter, but the one that we thought was going to get the defensive coordinator job, but he left.
Oh, Klinkstale?
Yeah,
Klink or the D-line coach. Could it maybe also be the strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, that could be
Ben
too.
Herbert?
It might be all of them. They're not going to say, but it could be all of them. It could just be anyone who was associated with the University of Michigan that left.
I mean, I would have been very shocked if they would have said, and it still includes people on the Michigan coaching staff that were a part of the incident, because that's pretty much just the head man in the HBIC right now. Like, that is just Sharon Moore. The entire rest of the staff is gone.
Well, they probably looked at it and said, Sharon paid his due, essentially.
He served a one game, yeah.
Yeah, he served his suspension. So, like, there's no need to further penalize him. And I think it's mainly going to sit on, Harbaugh and OC and DC.
All right. Mr. Connectivity Issues, man, you got anything in addition you want to add to that?
No, this is just more goes to show you that the NCAA is corrupt, and we should just burn it down.
All right, great. See, I did a very good job at stacking these. We talked about Damian Martinez entering the transfer portal and how he needs to find a home as a bell cow. What I should have just piggybacked right off of that is Cormani McClain. This was Deion Sanders' big get. He got the Colorado job, and he immediately flipped a corner 5-star from the University of Miami to come join him in the mountains of Colorado with him and Travis Hunter. And I remember Robert's like, they're going to have the best defense in the country. That never happened. Trust me. Robert's never said that.
I was about to say, I do not remember that. Ever.
What I do remember you saying is you were not surprised that Cormani McClain flipped and went to play for Deion because Deion does know that position so well. However, Cormani said, deuces, I'm out, entered the transfer portal. He's got 2 weeks to find a home. I should mention before people start jumping on things that Deion has been very open about Cormani and his lack of effort on the practice field and his lack of effort in the classroom. Deion this offseason has also come out and put his own team on blast about how they left their locker room in a state of mess, how they are not practicing hard, how they're not showing up to class. He had his social media team videotaping him basically roasting his kids, not showing up to class and being disrespectful in the classroom by reading emails that he got from teachers. Robert Simeon, twofold question. Cormani McClain is hard to say, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. You think it's a personality or a team or where he was at thing? 2, I want you to comment on the culture at Colorado, because to piggyback off this, as soon as Cormani left, Shiloh got on his Instagram and said defensive transfer players, DM me. Offensive transfer players, DM Shadur, the starting quarterback, Deion's other son.
I I don't know, and that's not a good answer for a podcast like this. But to me, it made me respect Deion a little bit more. That he's like, if you watch the end of that video of him putting his kids on blast, it's like, I get it, people are here for NIL, but like, we got a job to do, and you have to do everything. Basically, is what he said. Well, actually, what he said is 98% of my team isn't going to make it to the league. So you got to put in what you get out. And I think that's a good thing. I heard a lot of people say they didn't like the way that Deion handled transferring into Ohio. I had them winning more than 6 games last year. Oops, was wrong about that.
If only 2 other podcasters would have called that.
No, I never said you weren't right. So to me, so it was both of. Did you just say it's both of his sons that put it on Instagram to DM them for transfer?
Well, Shiloh put it on his Instagram feed and then tagged Shadur and said, offensive players DM him.
So it's weird because Shiloh isn't one of the leaders or dogs, right?
I think he's a leader. I think he's he knows how to get cooked, so he better be a leader, you know?
A little undersized. So it just, that kind of, it was like, those 2 kids clearly want to build something. But I'm not sure the rest of the kids want to build something, which answers your first question. I think a lot of them saw the flash, said, I can come in. I'm not going to say what I'm just thinking. I'm going to filter that. I'm going to move to Boulder, if you know what I'm saying, for multiple different reasons. And we're going to be hype. And this is the cool new thing. And I can do my TikTok dances and I can get a little bit of money. And I can get coached by the coolest coach in the league. And then it turns around and you lose most of your games. You only win 5 games. You get cooked when you need to not get cooked. You look like a Division II team sometimes. And what happens? Yeah, the turd looks a little less shiny now. And you realize and you look around you, as at least I do, and I go, oh, everything looks a little less shiny. It's all turds. This looks a little less shiny. I'm going to get out of here. Oh, I'm then actually held to the standard that Deion was saying that he was going to hold me to. He's going to hold me to the standard that he told the kids to pack their bags and get out to. Then, yeah, I'm going to transfer out. So I think this is a kid thing. I don't think this is a team thing. I think it's okay. I wouldn't freak out, but I'm also known to be wrong. Robert.
Yeah. I like the way Deion handled everything with the locker room. And I think a lot of it now is because at Jackson State, it wasn't necessarily a big deal because the microscope wasn't on. At Colorado, the microscope is on, and it's even more on because of the constant heat that the team just brings itself, whether it's through social media or, Deion just being Deion. Deion's always been that, like, arrogant, like, I'm better than you guy. And a lot of times he is. With Shiloh and Shadur doing the thing on Instagram, I'm kind of okay with it just because at least you're seeing them kind of trying to take like a leadership role. But I don't necessarily agree with it because those 2 shouldn't be the ones to decide who comes in and who doesn't come in. And it's just one of those deals where I think the team itself was I think they honestly thought they were going to win a national championship last year. I think they thought that, yep, this is going to happen. We're going to beat the snot out of everyone. They beat TCU. They're like, all eyes on us. We're winning this thing.
I predicted that.
Yeah, you predicted it. Why? I don't know, but you did. And, it just fell apart from there.
Okay.
They just got beat. But
let's not let's not give Micaiah too much credit for predicting TCU.
So okay, when he got the job, I just want credit for how early in advance I did it. I said when he got the job, there's going to be all this hype, and
no. We don't need to relive this moment. Micaiah, TCU was one of those teams that went from first to worst.
No, I understood that. I just want credit for how far in advance I called it.
All right, Micaiah, good job. Go get a cookie. Robert,
Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. I don't think there's a bad culture there, just because I don't think there's necessarily a culture yet. It's only been there a year. If this is 2-3 years from now and you're still having the same issues, then yeah, we have a culture problem. But I think, right now they're just kids who are coming in thinking their shit don't stink, and they're just finding out reality that, I'm not that good. And I also think that, Shadur and Shiloh, they want to go to the NFL. And obviously Dion wants them to go to the NFL. So they're trying to put together the best team they can possibly do to make sure they get to the NFL. Losing McLean, he only really played in one game, but, he was a 5-star prospect. And he plays one game at corner when you couldn't stop a cold. Like Travis Hunter, who apparently was God's greatest gift to the NCAA, like he Stanford of all teams, like, let's go back to that game, and that kid from Stanford put him on freaking skates. Like, I don't like how he didn't get the opportunity to play more as a 5-star is beyond me, other than the fact that they were just like, yeah, these kids aren't playing because they're just not, like, who cares?
Robert, you were very, like, you saw the writing on the wall for Colorado. I mean, you're like, they ain't going to win 3 games. They ain't going to come anywhere close. They're going to be terrible. I was kind of like, they'll almost be a bowl team. They'll be like 5-7. They even missed that mark. Simeon was like, nah, they're going to be a bowl team, maybe even 8 wins. Okay, so but you were on that end. Is it correct to say you really didn't hate Dion and what he was trying to do, but you hated how the media and everyone just immediately overhyped Colorado?
Yeah, I don't hate Dion. What he did at Jackson State was, he made them a powerhouse for a couple of years. But then when you walk into a college football program like Colorado, who has success once every eclipse, then and the media instantly, I mean, their recruiting class wasn't even in the top 30.
Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit was there for their spring game. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're just like, this team is it. This team's legit. He's bringing all his kids from Jackson State. And when they said all the kids were coming from Jackson State, that was my first red flag. Just because these aren't kids who were good enough to play for Florida State, Michigan, Ohio State. That's why they were or there were other foreseen circumstances.
Right.
But most of those kids could not compete with Division I athletes. And you were seeing this over and over and over again. The offensive line, they couldn't even stop me. Like, that's
probably true.
Shadur was running for his life every game. The games had to be shootouts because they couldn't stop a cold. Oregon made them look like a peewee football team out there because in reality, it almost was talent-wise. So that was my first red flag. And then the media just like, this team's top dog. This team is going to do everything. This team is just it. And it's like, these kids haven't even taken a snap yet. They weren't even talking about Georgia. It was Colorado.
Yeah, the defending natties.
Georgia didn't win.
No, but they won more than 4 games.
I know. I'm more just making a joke about how we won. Go
I mean,
for it.
Georgia was in the media for other things.
It's a requirement, don't you know?
Yeah.
To play at Georgia, street racing. Street racing is the new requirement.
If you can't street race intoxicated, you can't go to Georgia.
It doesn't have to be intoxicated. It's one or the other.
Yeah, it's one or it's not both.
Oh,
You don't
okay.
need it to be both. No, it can be both.
It can, but
Yeah. It doesn't have to be.
but both is actually frowned upon.
They're actually pretty lax over there.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they came out and these kids are, intoxicated while playing football, which is arguably more impressive.
Well, Marshawn,
Stetson Bennett, yeah. How he went to 8 years of college at Georgia and graduated with this many degrees is Van Wilder type stuff and needs to be studied, and a movie needs to be made.
yeah, it's called Burt Kreischer's life. What's the next topic?
That's it, my dude. We're done. We're at 56 minutes, so thank you for joining for 5 of those minutes.
Well, I feel like crap now, and I think it's my network's fault, but I'm not sure. So
You always blame the network, but yet
it's probably my computer.
you have the same network.
It's Micaiah, listen, I don't make that healthcare money yet.
Well, you know, it's like Ryan Day blaming his running game for not being able to run down the clock against Michigan, but he doesn't run the football.
I'm not sure if it's just like an outage or if I need to restore my computer. So you know what? This hasn't been IT talk. Get us out of here, please, for the love of all things holy.
In all seriousness, though, when you have a wide receiver like Marvin Harrison, are you really going to run the ball?
No, I mean, I am much like in Madden. He's going deep every play, and I'm just, it's over the shoulder freeform every single time. 100%. All right.
With that, getting drafted.
I got him 6. Someone's going 6. All right. This has been the 4th&1 podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, Admiral, for actually coming in here and there. CFB. For CFB, I'm Captain Boring. That's Admiral. You like that. Until next time, wash those hands, you filthy animals. See you later.